Hey guys, Prowl 1701 here, and today we're going to be reviewing some Big Finish, and we're going to be reviewing the Sword of Orion with the 8th Doctor. It's nice to add another 8th Doctor story and have it under the belt, so to speak. And I really liked this one. This is probably one of my favorite Cyberman story. Now, I was listening to this digitally, and the little image that came up had a picture of the Cyberman, which I'm guessing is the front cover for the CD. Had a Cyberman on it, so automatically I'm like, Cyberman story, which I'm sure most of you knew, and if you didn't know, you're welcome. Cyberman story. Now, I actually listened to this about a week ago, and I was having trouble trying to get the review in my head, so to speak, and then right as it was kind of getting there, I got a really bad sinus infection. I get those once or twice a year, and I hate them. They're dreadful. It takes me about a week to get rid of them. I'm on the upswing of that now, still not completely over it. But I hate waiting that long to get a review done, because my memory's awful. I like to do it when it's fresh in my mind. But I absolutely loved this story. McGann's performance is fantastic. I really like the 8th Doctor. It is such a crime that we have not got more of him on television. I need that Time War 8th Doctor spinoff that we have wanted for over a decade, since we've all wanted since we watched Night of the Doctor. I need that. I truly need that. I need me some more McGann on screen. Because his audio stuff that I have listened to, I enjoyed. I haven't listened to a lot, but like I've listened to his version of Shoutout, which I enjoy. And I've listened to Storm Warning, which was really good. Matter of fact, I think this takes place right after Storm Warning, I believe. I know it's one of the older Big Finish stories. And it's more about early 8th Doctor, and it does have Charlie with him. I also like Charlie. The actress who voices Charlie is very good as Charlie, and I like Charlie a lot in this. Charlie strikes me as someone who has a really good head on their shoulders. I mean, the Doctor's pretty good about picking his companions, so she's got a solid head on her shoulders. And she learns to trust and listen to the Doctor, which I like. Just, McGann has some really good lines in here. I love when he taunts the Cybermen at one point, kind of toward the end of the story. He's like, ha 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 ha, blind faith. That's your strategy at the end. Blind faith. I can't remember the exact line, but the way he says that line, I love it. I love it. That was like, I tend to love when McGann raises his voice. Most of you know my favorite scene in the TV movie is when he's chained up at the end with the Master, and him and the Master are having that back and forth while he's got the little headgear on, and he has that bit about, all your lives, you'd wasted, or I'd stolen your. I love that whole exchange. I like McGann when he gets a bit angry and he's got his voice raised. He's so good at that. I like the guest cast. Every now and then I have a little trouble telling who's talking, but some of the voices differentiate well enough I can keep up with, like the captain, the new captain, the female captain. I like her a lot. Just as a character, I like her a lot, but she has this no-nonsense way that the actress performing her speaks, this very clipped, no-nonsense, business is business way she speaks. I love the way she does the dialogue. And the way she's written, I like the fact that she believes the Doctor. A lot of the situations, because there's very much that situation which, as Jess from Seska Says points out in some of her reaction videos, that there's a lot of times where the Doctor hears someone in trouble, the Doctor and the companion shows up just in time to be too late and come across the dead body of someone, and of course, that's right when someone who knows said dead person shows up and immediately blames the Doctor for it. You killed them! Of course that happens here, where someone gets killed by a Cyberman. The Doctor and Charlie show up, and of course get blamed for it. When the Doctor points out why logically he couldn't have done it, there's several people who are like, but we still know you did it, even though it's physically impossible for him to have done it. And the captain's like, no, there's no way he could have done it. I like that. I actually do like the fact the captain seems to have some common sense and logic and is willing to trust the Doctor, listen to the Doctor. I like that. Also, it does a really good job of keying you in that there's more going on with the captain that meets the eye, which there is. There's a lot more to her than you initially suspect. For example, she has a gun that's very effective against the Cybermen when nobody else has weapons that are effective against the Cybermen. Little things like that. There's several little interesting paths her story takes. I actually really like her as a character. There's also another crewman on the ship Because at one point he kind of causes a mutiny. There is a little mutiny that happens. The guy who instigates that, I can't remember his name, it starts with a G. He has this way of speaking. It's kind of this blue collar, what I call blue collar. I'm not very familiar with British dialects because I'm an American, of course. But he has this more, it comes across to me as low class worker, blue collar dialect, way that he speaks. So I can always tell when he's talking because his manner of speak is so different. And I like that about him. Because he comes across as this very, been on the job 20 years, grunt work type guy who thinks he's smarter than he is. Just that voice fits his character really well, and it helps me differentiate him from other people speaking. So I really liked him as a character and the voice actor performing him. I really like this version of the Cybermen, which I picture as, because the image on the cover, I believe, is the Invasion, Revenge of the Cybermen, which is my favorite Cybermen look-wise, especially the helmets. I love those helmets. They might not be actually my favorite bodysuits. They're my favorite overall design for the Cybermen is the Invasion, Revenge of the Cybermen. I love that design. It's mostly down to the helmet and that blank facial expression, that face that just has no soul, no emotion, no heart, nothing. No empathy, no sympathy, no pity, nothing. That blank face gets that across. I like the fact they kind of brought that blank face back when they brought the Cybermen back with the lone Cyberman's army. We saw kind of toward the end of the Whitaker era. I like that blank face design. So that's my favorite Cybermen design. So those are the ones I was picturing in this. And the voices of the Cybermen are perfect in this. I have a lot of issues with sometimes how they do the voices of the Cybermen. For instance, I love the 10th Planet Cybermen, but most of the rest of the 60s Cybermen, as much as I love their designs and their stories, I tend to hate the voices, like the Tomb of the Cybermen. I can't stand their voices. Even the Moonbase, I can't stand their voices. Wheel in Space, can't stand their voices. It's just hard to understand. I tend to love their voices more in the 80s stories and in the 70s story, Revenge of the Cybermen. I like those voices. And it's kind of like that there, where it's easy to understand the Cybermen. It sounds menacing, but the Cybermen are also written to be actually emotionless. They come across as very emotionless in this story, whereas sometimes in classic Doctor Who, the emotionless Cybermen are... They got some emotions going on, let's be honest. Don't get me wrong. I always love David Banks as the cyber leader. He is always excellent in the role. But even the 80s stories and Revenge of the Cybermen, they're a little more emotional than they probably should be. This story nails that perfectly, where they come across as the emotionless Cybermen they're supposed to be. So the execution of the Cybermen in this story is almost unparalleled. It's really good. It's up there with the best of the Cybermen portrayal. So I really like that. I love how well the story describes what's going on. It's easy for me, because much like when I'm listening with a Big Finish audio, it's the same way as when I'm reading a book. I picture what's going on in my mind, what me and the Flyattractor call the movie in our minds or the movie in our heads. We picture the events going on in our mind. I have a very good imagination. I'm very good at filling in the details. The story does a good job of helping me do that, where I can picture what's going on the main ship, which almost collided with what turns out to be the Cybermen ship, this massive ship in space that the other ship's trying to pick up as salvage, because that's a heck of a bonus they get if they can salvage it. They don't know the Cybermen are on board at first. And so it does a really good job of when you're on one ship and when you're on the other ship, and getting you that dread of that building, that tension, that atmosphere of, oh, something's going to go wrong, something's going to go wrong. We get a little prologue at the beginning with two people finding the ship and them getting caught, which is really well done. And I like those two. They kind of remind me of the two guys from Attack of the Cybermen that are on the planet, the ones that have been partly converted, and how they act toward each other, with one of them kind of being kind of cowardly and the other one just wanting to smack him all the time. They're a lot like those two. Like, I almost picture them being the same people. I love that. I mean, it doesn't work for them to be the same people, but they act the same, and I love it. And then, of course, you have a bit where sabotage starts happening on the main ship, the human ship. and what it describes, I'm obviously thinking Cybermat. Strikes me as a Cybermat, a very clever Cybermat, which is what it ends up being. But the way it builds that up is really well done. I like the fact that this story remembers that the Cybermen can hypnotize people, can kind of take cyber control of them like we see in the Wheel of Space. I like that it harkens back to that, because that happens a couple times where even the Cybermat can, like, hypnotize someone and put them under cyber control. It's a bit gruesome what happens. Not a lot of happy endings for some people in it. It's like, I really don't want to get into spoilers. I mean, I kind of already have, I guess, but like, this is one of those stories, instead of listening to me talk about it, you need to just go listen to it. It's really, really good. It's one of my favorite Big Finish stories. It's one of my favorite Cybermen stories. I really recommend anyone, if you like Cybermen stories, to go listen to this, The Sword of Orion. It's really good. And then come back and listen to the review. Everything unfolds really well in this. Like I said, I don't really want to just talk about all of the spoilers. I'd rather you just go listen to it. It is so good. I love McGann's performance. I like the 8th Doctor in this. McGann's got a really good voice. I tend to like... seems like most of the people cast as the Doctor, their voices work really well for audio stories. Same thing with Colin. I'm actually partway through watching Real Time right now for the first time. About halfway through that, and I really like his voice. And of course, I enjoyed, I'm also working my way through the Klein trilogy. I've listened to part 1 of the Klein trilogy, and I like McCoy's voice a lot. So I'm enjoying McGann's voice in this as well. This is a really fun story. I like the ending. I like that the ending, while in some ways kind of reminding me of Horror of Fang Rock, while in another way it's very open-ended with one particular character where that character could come back. I like how it leaves that open where one of the guest characters, let's say, could come back, because I'd like to have that character back a lot. And I think it does a really good job of stopping the Cybermen threat the way it does it. It builds well. It builds really well over its 4 parts. It's just a really good Big Finish story. And I'm really glad I got an opportunity to listen to it. So, The Sword of Orion. Have you ever heard it? I want to know what you think. What do you think of Cybermen stories in general? And what are some of your favorites? Comment down below and let's talk about it. Don't forget to click the like button and the subscribe button and all the other fun stuff that's down in the comments. Links to the Patreon, links to the Amazon wish list, links to the Amazon UK wish list. If anyone would like to send me anything on that, if anyone wants to send me a copy of that Season 1 Steelbook, I'd love to have it. I just can't afford to get it right now, but I'd love to have it. It looks gorgeous. I love Lee Binding's art. And I want to give a shout out to one of my top tier patrons, Colin Coney, as well. You have to forgive me. Again, still sinus infection. My voice is going. Most importantly, thank you for watching.